Imagine a world where all students can choose to focus on education without the pressure of sports scholarships. Student athletes are so worried about getting paid to play their sport that they struggle to focus on their education. The amount of money college athletes are paid would motivate them to or make them push their education completely to the side. This is a serious issue because many college athletes do not make it to the professional level, so it is important for them to also focus and take advantage of their education while they have the chance. College athletes should have a way of having money to afford their necessities like housing and food since they are not able to get jobs during their season. However, student athletes do put a lot of time and effort into their sport and deserve to be compensated in a way it is included in their scholarships. Schools should have a better funding for students to have affordable schooling, housing, and food so they do not have to fall prey to corporations while trying to get an education. If some student athletes start making exorbitant salaries, all of their education could be jeopardized. When star athletes start to accumulate large amounts of money from corporations, it will be hard for some to focus on their education. The money management in sports business will prey on young athletes, taking their focus off their education. College athletes need to focus on their education and realize how they are at their college. At the end of the day, college athletes need to take advantage of their education that they are getting now because many of them will not reach the professional level. If these student athletes' educations are not protected now, their future can be in jeopardy. Louise Gale states how economic pressures can also be a distraction for athletes. And she said, although students would be still required to meet academic standards to qualify for academic programs, paying athletes for sports participation would likely shift personal priorities. They would be required to maintain their position on the team to benefit from the income, much like they are required to do so now to maintain a scholarship. Athletes would choose programs where they would be paid the most instead of choosing programs where they could learn the most. Gil is explaining how when money comes into the picture, many people get so focused on money and can struggle to focus on their main priority, which is their education. Many of these student athletes are already making money and do want to graduate, but there is a handful that is completely disregards the education. All students should be treated with equal dignity and support. Having affordable education, housing, and food will allow students to prioritize their education. When these things are affordable, students are able to put their academics first and do not have to stress about getting a job with their rigorous schedules. Sawani explained, for starters, some football players are already paid quite a lot of money in the form of full scholarships. I pay upward of $50,000 a year to attend Stanford. Athletes on full scholarships pay nothing while receiving the same education I do. This quote from Sawani is explaining how even though these athletes are getting free tuition, other students still have to pay the full tuition. Whether students are all getting the same education free of charge or not, they should be treated equally. Athletes should be excused when necessary because other students at colleges have to attend class, pay full tuition, and get assignments in on time. To support all student needs equally, all students should be held accountable for assignments, class attendance, and keeping up with their curriculum. Student athletes deserve to be excused when they have meets where they cannot be in class or complete an assignment that day, but otherwise they should be held to the same standards as the other students in their classes. When student athletes get excused for assignments, non-athlete students find it unfair and ridiculous because they do not have other things to do, but do not get exceptions. Obviously, student athletes need exceptions when they have games, mandatory things for their sport, but not attending class regularly or completing assignments on time is unfair to the other students in their classes. All students have other commitments outside of their education and deserve to be treated all the same at their university. Student athletes do receive free tuition to their colleges but cannot financially support themselves to meet their basic needs. Many student athletes come from poor backgrounds and are not able to afford their necessities when they get to college. Even though they get a lot of money from their schools, they do not have time to get a job during their season. Ahmed Barushika explains in his article why should college athletes be paid, that paying athletes will reduce the need for additional work and is equivalent to a work-study program. Colleges should create a work study type program to help their athletes afford their meals, room, and board and tuition. A program like this would take away one of the main arguments for this problem and would help many people understand the dangers of paying student athletes. If the colleges could not fund these work study programs, money could be added to the student scholarships to help them have money to afford their needs. College athletes really do not have time to get jobs during their season, but including money in their scholarships could fix their problems and not allow them to get paid a salary on top of a scholarship. Student athletes at a college that is smaller will have smaller athletics, so not as much money is being brought into the school like the larger universities that we know of. As of right now, student athlete funds are coming from the NIL deals from corporate sponsors. Athletes are being funded by these corporate sponsors, and all the students athletes might not have the opportunity to be paid by these big corporate sponsors because of their smaller teams and fewer accomplishments. For example, Angel Reese is now a well-known athlete after LSU won the women's basketball national championship this year. Angel Reese is now getting hundreds of corporate sponsors that are funding her through NIL deals. At the smaller college athletes level, they have to work harder to get their name out there to receive these corporate sponsorships. Student athletes earn a lot of money from sponsorships to build up their name during their college years. However, it is harder for student athletes at smaller universities. It is important to understand that all students have the right to equal education and treatment as a college student. Some student athletes will not be benefited from their pay because they will lose the focus of their education they're receiving. But that is not the case for student athletes that are wanting a good education. College campuses will have large impacts and problems if student athletes are paid because other students will want the same treatment. If colleges make it a goal to implement better systems for more affordable tuition, meals, and housing, their student athletes will work harder for corporate sponsorships and get rid of the idea of a student athlete salary.